have a favor to ask.
What is
My sister Betty's daughter had a daughter. That makes her my grandniece. Well, my sister's been long gone, and last year her daughter died. And it's been hard on my grandniece, so I hear. She's mixed blood. And when she was a child, she would come to Gracewood with her mother. One summer they came every week. And Maya, that's her name, was enchanted. Enchanting. Just to see her play in the gardens. Here's a picture.
You're listening to The Night Before, a movie podcast. Each episode, we find a unique place in the city and share a drink and our thoughts about the movie we watched the night before. This is Lee, and I am joined, as always, by my husband, Jesse.
Can you see me?
I can see you.
Good. Welcome back.
Circa 1949.
1949.
We do like podcasts in when we're in Tampa
We like podcasting
these
here.
days in two places.
This is our favorite spot.
That's our, as
Our
the
go-to.
audio says, we pick a place in the city, an interesting place in the city.
This is our
It's one of the most interesting places.
interesting places that
For
we
sure.
come to.
It's a rainy
Sunday.
rainy Sunday afternoon, evening in August,
Yep.
but it's cool for a change.
Cooler. We can sit outside, actually, in the
Yeah.
heated summer that we've had.
It's true.
It's been unbearably hot.
We're at Circa, one of our favorite go-tos. We're drinking, they don't brew beer, we've talked about it. But we're
ordered
drinking
different
two hazy,
beers.
but
They
yeah.
actually taste the
this
same.
is where we're calling the IPA, hazy IPA scene to task.
Because we ordered two that we know and like.
Two great local faves.
Skyway Haze, which is by
Green Bench Brewing in St. Pete.
Green Bench.
Never podcasted there.
Never, but we like it.
And Juice Lord,
Magnanimous.
which
We've
we have
podcasted there.
podcasted there. But here's the
We
tricker,
didn't
right?
see them pour them, so we're not exactly sure which one's which, and they honestly taste the same. So
It's like the Pepsi challenge. It's the hazy IPA challenge. We don't know what we're drinking. They taste close to the same. Now, I will say, I'm going to take a sip here. They also look close to the same. I have a feeling this is,
Juice Lord.
no, the Skyway Haze.
See, I think opposite.
However, only because I think that's what she poured. However,
Someone's looking at us really
I think that
strangely.
it tastes like Juice Lord.
Yeah, I think this one's Juice Lord, and that one is Skyway.
Either
So,
which way.
I'm
That's
not
that.
sure.
It's
Yeah.
just,
So we're gonna move on, even though people are staring at us very strangely.
we might get some
They
Inception
might.
Bros
Who
on
knows?
camera any second now.
Inception Bros.
From our
Maybe.
Oppenheimer
Seems like it,
episode.
Maybe. Barbenheimer.
Yeah, our Barbenheimer Part 2 episode.
Yeah. So
Those three dudes, which did not appear on camera, stared off camera. They hated Oppenheimer.
probably.
What they'd probably also hate was our Paul Schrader double feature.
That we just watched this weekend.
Yeah. Paul Schrader.
Watched the second one last night.
We watched his most recent Master Gardener.
Not last night.
Well, the night before, the night before.
The night
And then
before the night
last night we watched
before. The Reform.
First Reform starring Ethan Hawke.
First Reform.
An A24 film from about 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Big Paul Schrader fan here.
Yeah, I don't really know about him until you. I mean, I know I've watched movies by him.
Well, he's
but
famous.
I'm not one that remembers directors.
But he's
and
famous.
whatnot.
Full disclosure, the two films he's more famous for writing and or directing, because he writes and directs. He wrote Taxi Driver.
Right.
Directed and maybe wrote. Can't look it up. American Gigolo.
Oh yeah.
Richard Gere.
Seen that. We podcasted on that, didn't we?
No, we started watching it because of my Paul Schrader-ness, but we never
Oh.
podcasted. But that's not the Paul Schrader I love. I love a recent film, Card Counter, which you didn't.
I I saw parts of it. I was
Yeah.
working at the time.
And the Willem Dafoe film Light Sleeper.
Right. I saw that.
No, you didn't watch that.
No, I didn't.
Susan Sarandon, Willem
you
Dafoe. I
sure?
showed you the trailer.
Okay.
It's on
okay.
Tubi.
Okay.
Love those films. Paul Schrader seems of some of his work seems to have a
Similar framework.
similar framework. 75% of a male, just kind of
Male protagonist.
going through some turmoil. The last
Working
20,
things out, working
25% of the
things
film comes to blows. It can either be super violent, it can be a big revelation, some big change happens.
Right. There's a lot of like mental anguish. There's a lot of him working things out
Yeah.
with the other characters around him. So,
But I will say this. After watching these two movies, First Reformed and Master Gardener, Paul Schrader, big fan of journaling.
huge.
Big journal advocate.
I'm a big journal advocate.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Talk to us about it.
It works things out for you. And maybe that's where he got a lot of his movie ideas, that he journals himself
Yeah.
and the movie ideas kind of bubble up.
Right?
I'm thinking that's
Like
like
the-
writers do.
Like in First Reformed, that the Ethan Hawke character, he's doing a 12-month experiment of like, I write in my journal,
Every day, just like flat out truth.
unfiltered,
Unfiltered.
and then I will burn and shred this and destroy it at the end of the 12 months.
Right.
Or is the journaling? So I see that. I mean, you don't think of it included unless I think it's part of
And
your
then the
life.
Master Gardener also journals.
Yeah. It's
But he
also
mainly journals about plants and
right.
whatnot.
Yeah.
But I think there's metaphors and similes within
Yeah.
that.
It's also a
Journaling.
good plot. It's a good like device for your movie.
Mhm.
It gives you an excuse to have voiceover.
Well, it gives internal thoughts of a character.
Yeah. And it can guide your film.
Yeah.
Because if I believe correctly, Light Sleeper, Willem Dafoe, he's like a drug runner for Susan Sarandon. She's like a drug dealer.
Oh, yeah. No, I haven't seen that.
And he does a lot of voiceover. I don't know if he's journaling at home when he goes back to his. That's the other thing. A lot of his characters just live in solitude, like bare rooms, it's.
Maybe that's how Paul Schrader lives.
I don't know.
You never know. You never know. Those creative types can be a little crazy
So
at times.
let's start with Master Gardener.
Okay. First of all, should we say what? Oh, we'll do that after.
What?
Which one you liked better?
Yeah, we'll do that final
We'll do
decision.
that at the end.
Also, I'll set up for our framing for the video. We do have the taco truck behind us, which is one of our favorite taco trucks in Tampa.
It really is. We like it a lot.
So we did want to highlight them in the
We
background.
we got nachos today. We typically get the tacos, but the nachos are pretty
Yeah.
special.
Eat that off camera.
The jalapenos are really
Yeah.
good on it. But anyway,
All right, so Master Gardener, been wanting to see it a while. It's funny. I really wasn't hip to the phrase Master Gardener until like I just did a year's work with Master Gardeners.
oh, okay. So that's why it caught your eye.
Well, Paul Schrader caught my eye. But I did work amongst Master Gardeners
Yeah, you
for a
did.
year.
Yeah.
None of them are as cool as Joel Edgerton
And as rigid.
or as scary.
Or as scary.
So, what did you think of Master Gardener?
I really liked Master Gardener a lot. I have to say the I can't think of the word. The scenery, the
The
scenery, the setting was really nice. I like the concept of it with the niece, and I liked that he was kind of indebted to this. Although I think a lot of it was predictable.
Yeah.
Like I knew he was gonna end up like being sexual with the
The young niece.
yes, and the
Oh, with Sigourney Weaver.
yeah.
The sort of
I
like,
kind of figured that because the way she called him Sweet Pea and the
Sweet
way she
Pea, I kinda
treated
loved it.
him,
right?
And I knew, of course, he was going to end up being sexual with the niece, which is very predictable.
They almost didn't want that.
I almost didn't want that because, I mean, the age difference was too much.
So there's some, yeah, it's funny. Normally we talk movie by movie. Some very common themes, at least in these two films.
And I felt,
Older male
yeah,
becomes attracted and entwined with a younger female, right? In both movies.
yeah,
Because Amanda Seyfried, who's in
yeah,
Form, similar path happens with Ethan
yeah.
Hawke.
He's like 47, she's 33-ish.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the problem for me was that the
Wow.
way older male with an early 20s girl, the influence you have on someone that's kind of been like troubled, like I'm just going to go save her, but then I'm also going to have sex with her.
Well, so
And I'm also, that kind of bothered me a bit. Like,
well, when you look at it,
it's too predictable.
It's a
And
2023 film. Look at 23 eyes. We seem to be hypercritical on like older man, younger female. Like
I know, but that's extreme older. That's
she was like 25, 26 in the movie, 24.
her real age.
Yeah, because
24,
but
23.
Weaver's character says, he goes, how old is she? And he goes like 20, and Sigourney Weaver goes older, like because Sigourney Weaver's character,
She's like between 20 and 25.
she doesn't know because this is her sister's daughter's kid, right?
Yeah.
So she's not even, and this is her like, I'm not connected.
I mean, he's old enough to be her father.
Of course.
And I'm not trying to be hyper focused on it because of the times we live in. I just think it's like too predictable. Like that, okay, well, of course he's going to have sex with her.
The movie's too predictable, and then you can also say it's too unrealistic, right?
Right.
But I think in this one, unlike first,
I liked the movie. I just didn't like that aspect of it.
So Card Counter, which you didn't really see, which is really good. It's really slow and plotting. It deals with like war crimes from the Iraq War and the torturing of prisoners at Guantanamo Bay, right? And which I think Willem Dafoe is in Card Counter.
Okay.
But anyway, so it's kind of the main character in that one is coming to, and he has a young apprentice, a young shadow, a young person, right? Just like these other movies. But anyway, so it's coming to that redemption. And I think First Reformed had its similar message of like the main male protagonist going through this journey, right? And where he ends up. I told Master Gardener I really liked it. And for your points, I get. But I felt this one, Paul Schrader was being very, to forgive the pun, like being very black and white. Like it's it's an allegory. It's like you need a young black woman for him to fall in love with, and because Joel Edgerton, he's a former Proud Boy white supremacist that
killed
neo-Nazi,
killed people,
yeah,
because of their race and
and it's this weird like take on race relations, slavery, and redemption. This is his path to be redeemed, right? And so so I looked at it that way of like, oh, because it seems inappropriate or a little
I think
white savior, even like he did a little white savior. I'm going to save you from drugs for her.
Right, yeah.
At the same time, she was his savior and his redemption because she made him be vulnerable and stand up to the quote powers that be. Sigourney Weaver is like the plantation owner.
But at the same time, she was also cast as the cliche black girl that gets into trouble and into drugs and lives in the projects.
Yeah. No, I know. But a little bit on, yeah. So, I looked at some of it like see the whole movie instead of, even though you're narrated through Joel Edgerton's eyes, like he's journaling, talking about plans. and you know he's kind of because of the trauma he's felt in his life, and he's in witness protection, like he's trying to redeem himself, right? But in some ways, it's almost like the movie is really from Sigourney Weaver's character's perspective, the sort of white plantation, like the quote plantation owner, right? Because she holds all the cards. So even the mixed race great niece or whatever,
Didn't seem to bother her.
no, it does bother her.
I mean, but she accepts her.
I don't think she does,
Oh, okay.
right?
Because it's not unconditional. It's like she
yeah,
screws up, then she's
she
out.
wants her to be so
Yeah.
grateful. Oh, I let you be on
Right,
this
right,
boat,
right.
on this, our gardens. I want you to. If once she speaks her mind, Sigourney Weaver's like, "You're done."
Yeah.
It should be like same thing like Joel Edgerton character. He's supposed to like be grateful for her. She's his.
Well, if Sigourney doesn't hold the power, then she doesn't want them there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, because of we're trapped. Sometimes we're trapped by the guilt of our past. And it was his,
So we live a life that we don't necessarily aren't proud of, just because we feel so much guilt from our past.
And that's his character. Just lives in constant guilt and shame. He can't get the tattoos off his back because it's a reminder of who he once was. Because I thought it was a really line. At one point, she said, "Who was that? Who are you?" When the girl learned about his tattoos and whatnot. And he said something like, "I was a different person. I was somebody else then, trying to be better now," or whatever. That's the person I used to be.
My question is, what made him change his thoughts?
I think.
How did we just time? Just how did his thoughts completely change about what? Where is the
race or about?
Where was the
about being like under the thumb of?
I just didn't understand. Just through gardening was his transformation?
I think over time, yeah.
Okay.
I think we met him at the cusp of his change. Like when she showed up and she's a mixed white, African American person. There's no signs that he's uncomfortable with that.
Right.
There are people of various backgrounds as part of his staff.
Of course.
So we can ascertain from that. That's why it's supposed to be a little shocking when we learn about him later.
Right.
Like, oh, you were a white supremacist neo-Nazi at one point. He shows no signs of that.
Now, so he's already transformed.
He's already come to grips with that.
He
lives in shame and guilt.
That was a part of him at one time.
I feel, yeah.
Yeah. And she lives in shame and guilt of her drug addiction because she constantly says, like, I'm not an addict. I'm not an addict.
Drug addiction.
But she is an addict.
Yeah. Her situation of almost wanting the contradiction between having a connection to a family of
wealth and means,
but the only life she's really experienced is one of poverty because of
her addiction,
and because the sister's daughter had
married a black person. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I liked all of that. I just did think, like, okay, so maybe the protagonist could have been younger to make it not as creepy.
Yeah.
But then would he have that war experience or not war experience, but neo-Nazi kind of.
Some of it I looked at as like it's the story of America, right? It's like when she confronts him later and says like, and they stand because there's two scenes where
Sigourney Weaver
and him stand naked in front of each other, or he stands naked in front of Sigourney Weaver. She says, like, take your clothes off.
It's a power play.
It happens again later between him and her, and after the girl.
Yeah.
And then after they're both naked, both exposed, vulnerable, he just comes and like puts his face in her belly, right? It's like it's nothing sexual really about it. It's
It's just like this is all of me. Like my secrets and my past. Like now you know.
Scene where he's talking about smelling the soil,
Yeah.
right? And
He's
it's
smelling her body
and
and
it's getting back to your roots, your core, humanity, and
being a
connecting.
human being.
And it does that weird scene at that point where they're really not driving through the night. They're driving through the night and all the flowers are blooming.
Right. But they're just like
bright and glowing.
in love with each other.
Yeah, and they've kind of both
Like
so
connected. They've connected.
And I looked at some of it, it was like, oh, this is like an allegory for the story of America. Right?
Yeah.
America,
I really liked the story a lot.
Is now confronting the ones who still hold in power. Like there's the great scene between him and Sigourney Weaver at the end where
I really liked the story a lot. And I'm not trying to come from the 2023, but I'm thinking like, okay, he's like our age, my age, 47, 48. I'm thinking like, okay, let's put the shoe on the other foot.
No,
like I'm 47. I'm gonna go after a 23, 24-year-old person that could be my child. It just feels a little creepy, not just because I'm living in this era. I think it would feel creepy 10 years ago or 15 years ago as well. I just think he seemed a little too old with her. That's all.
Could the movie be just as good as impactful if it is just like
10 years younger?
No, I'm not even saying younger. She's with me, I'm with her, we're not together.
Sexual.
But
yes, they didn't need the sexual element.
She's gonna live in the house with me. We're gonna.
Yeah, I'm helping her. I'm supporting her. I'm kind of in love with her, but I'm not going to go there because I'm not going to take advantage of this vulnerable person.
At the end of the day,
I think it could have had just as much impact. The story,
like some of that, and then like I said, and I thought about that watching, and then that tiptoes into like white savior territory.
True. It still does anyway.
It does a bit, but I felt there was a little bit of like she was his savior.
She was. Yeah, you're right.
Him forgiveness.
Like yes, 100%. She was.
I got in it was two pieces. One, you needed the balance of power in their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
She needed something to give to him.
Yeah.
To make him some control and power in that dynamic. And then two, it's also the line
that she had control over her sexuality. Yeah.
That it was her demands. This is what I want.
Right.
And that's how it was presented. He never pursued her.
Right.
She always pursued him.
She did.
And then the second piece, when he went and confronted Sigourney Weaver near the end and was like, the two of us will be living together on the grounds in this house. That was also, again, it's that like story of America. Like, this is happening.
Right.
Deal with it. Right?
Yeah. I really liked the movie.
Me too.
The cinematography, that's what the word I was looking for earlier, I think was really good.
It was a beautiful film.
Like, great. It's a beautiful film. The characters are beautiful. Everything's really nice about the film.
Two good things.
Visually.
Something happened in both films, and we can start getting to First Reform, but it happened first in Master Gardener. And we talk sometimes about viewer expectations. Like, we kind of, I mean, for me, you either think it's going to happen, not that you maybe want it to happen, but you think that's the path because it's like your viewer expectation. You think it's going to get terribly violent at some point.
I did.
Right?
It didn't, though.
And in some ways, you're rooting for it a little bit. Deal with those drug dealers.
Right.
Confront Sigourney Weaver. Let the rage come out.
Right. But it doesn't.
And that's part of her role, too. Like, the rage is within him. And she's the one who's like, I am the one who has the reason to have the rage.
Right.
We see that later in the next movie where about rage and anger. But she keeps that control in check, and the movie never takes it and like, oh, this could end violently and intense. And instead it gets you right up to it, and then it's one of those like it's playing chicken.
Yeah, it kind of seeps up and then foams back down. You're like, when is it gonna over? Yeah. I love that because I hate movies that are just, this is the climax, everybody gets shot, everybody gets killed, everybody gets stressful. It's, I do like that about those movies because I don't like it, fulfilling some violent act just because the mass wants to see violence and
like, what
sex and nudity and
movie Ruby in Paradise. Like, I went to the edge of the edge.
Went to the edge of the
On
edge.
the edge of the edge.
That's
What
right.
it takes it to the edge of the edge.
And then it simmers back down. Much more like real life
Yeah.
does. A lot of us come to the edge of the edge, but then we get our wits about us or find a solution or get determined. Like it takes getting to the edge to drive us to move forward to figure out a solution for some of our problems.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it shows. Well, at least in Master Gardener, what it shows.
Well, yeah. And I think in First Reformed, Joel Edgerton was really good as like the troubled protagonist. But I don't think he held a candle to Ethan Hawke's performance.
Ethan Hawke was great.
In like pure torment and inner stress.
Severe, widespread, and irreversible impacts. And when scientists say stuff like that, National Center for Atmospheric Research, Lawrence Livermore, Potsdam Institute, Reverend...
He went on like that for some time. By 2050, sea levels 2 feet higher on the East Coast. Low-lying areas underwater across the world. Bangladesh, 20% loss of landmass. Central Africa, 50% reduction in crops due to drought. The western reservoirs dried up, climate change, refugees, epidemics, extreme weather.
You know, the bad times, they will begin, and from that point, everything moves very quickly.
Ethan Hawke is great. I've always loved him. And he was far superior to Edgerton.
Yeah.
As far as that role. Even though Master Gardener, I think I liked the movie more, and the ending was better and everything. But Ethan Hawke was far superior.
Yeah.
As a protagonist. In the
First Reformed a few years ago came out. Ethan Hawke's a priest in a small little forgot about church, little souvenir church, an old historic building in the shadow of the local megachurch.
Cedric the Entertainer is the priest of. Which is kind of fun. It's kind of...
Yeah, good for Cedric to be like, I get it. I'll do the role.
Yeah.
I get the part.
Yeah. Like on me.
And like the dwindling congregation of like 6 people.
Yes, it's so sad.
And just like the interesting thing of like First Reformed, it opens early on with that monologue that Ethan Hawke gives the activist, the environmental activist, about living in contradiction. You always have to hold on to despair and hope at the same time.
When he's talking to her? Yeah, him. I mean...
When you live in this, Amanda Siegfried's husband.
Yeah.
Seyfried?
Yeah.
You always live in... You can't have hope without also having despair.
Despair, yeah.
And that waking up with the blackness at night.
Right.
In all of us. It's like a powerful monologue. One of the most powerful in a long time.
I agree. I liked that.
And then that carries the whole movie. That whole idea. And what happens when despair seeps into you. I mean, it's a very depressing movie.
Very depressing. Very bleak.
Like the power of despair once it gets inside of you.
I forgot what happened to his child. His child.
His child was killed in Afghanistan.
Oh, Afghanistan. And he encouraged him to go into the army because he was part of the army.
Generational, like the family
military
was you serve your country.
And he encouraged his son, and then his son was killed in Afghanistan or Iraq.
Iraq, I think so.
Okay. And dealing with that despair and then counseling someone that has despair and no hope.
And then transfers that despair to you.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Which I totally feel that. Like, I mean, I totally can see how people that counsel other people, psychologists, psychiatrists, priests, whatever, to constantly be dealing with people's sadness and despair and depression. How can you not at times turn it onto yourself and be like, You know, you have to really have a strong core
Yeah.
or belief system or whatever it is in order to not turn around and make you feel
Yeah.
depressed. I mean, there's all about like positivity and attitude, the people you surround yourself with, and I think that's a really difficult and realistic situation
Yeah.
that people like that deal with. For sure.
No, it was good. I mean, you start off, you're thinking, yeah, Ethan Hawke's as this kind of lonely priest. He's kind of lonely and sad, but he's got it together enough
Mm-hmm.
that he'll be okay.
Except then you slowly learn how much of an alcoholic he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, over the time of the movie.
He's self-medicating with alcohol. He has cancer eating away at him, but he's not doing anything about it.
He's self-destructive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing. It's like I said, Paul Schrader works well in just sort of metaphor, right? It's the despair, even though he's trying to hold on to hope in his life.
Well, what he's doing is he's punishing himself.
Has been eating away at him, yeah.
He's punishing himself for things he can't forgive himself
right?
for.
And that's the great parallel.
Yeah.
In Master Gardener, we see what happens when it's a story of redemption. First Reformed, we see it was in a story of like utter despair.
Yeah.
And the way it just sort of takes all over.
Yeah. For sure. Just like when you hear stories of, just going back to what I was saying before, psychiatrists or psychologists that have committed suicide or whatnot. Yeah. And you're like, well, they were the psychiatrists or psychologists. But think about what they listen to day in and day out and how invested they get in these people's lives because they're their lifeline, you know? And how does that feel to be the lifeline of someone who's so depressed or so much in despair, you know? It's
again a similar sort of plot, right? Like Path meets Amanda Seyfried when her husband commits suicide.
Yeah.
He starts to become sort of attached to her.
You know what I thought was interesting?
What?
How Amanda Seyfried didn't seem that shocked or upset.
Yeah.
At the fact that her husband had committed suicide.
Well, she kind of expected it. But it's funny, at first, again, like viewer expectation, part of it you're thinking like,
I almost thought there was
something to do with it.
Right. I thought that during the movie. I'm like, she's so kind of not upset about it.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it was kind of a relief because her husband wanted her to get rid of her baby.
Yeah.
And when you're pregnant and you want a baby, your baby becomes more important than your husband.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fact of the matter. You know what I mean? And I think maybe that could have been a slight relief to her in that way, that she now gets to choose her baby over her husband.
Like he changed over the years, even before the pregnancy.
She was not in love with him.
He was starting to like get distant and change, and
he
was getting the despair had taken over him, that he had become so consumed about
the environment,
and by 2050,
how the world was going to be.
Which I thought was good too in the movie. I'm like, man, it's pretty intense.
Yeah.
2050 is going to be scary. I was like, oh my God.
Except we're not going to obsess over that.
Well,
we do what we can.
Do a little bit of research.
Listen, we drive an EV. We don't use paper towels. We're doing our part.
We're
doing our part.
If you want to hear an interesting EV hitchhiking story, listen to our Oppenheimer episode.
It's a lifestyle choice.
It's a lifestyle choice. But I thought too was interesting. It was never like a crisis of faith movie, which I was really like. I don't think he ever really questioned his faith.
It wasn't a super religious movie, even though it was based on a priest.
But he did get kind of disenchanted by the church he was a part of. You know, kind of understanding like where money's coming from and the big business and industry.
Mm-hmm.
All of that was chipping away at him. And again, like Master Gardener, you thought it was leading up to a very explosive,
violent ending.
And you kind of wanted it because you're like, it's set up Cedric the
Well, in this day and age, that's what you're used to in movies. Yeah.
And it went, again, it played chicken. It played chicken with your violent expectation. And geared in another way.
Well, it's a more realistic
What?
way of ending. It's more realistic.
Well, yes and no.
I mean,
Granted.
yeah.
I don't know. In this day and age, like suicide bomber might be a more realistic way of ending. Sadly.
I thought it was. Well, I don't want to give away the ending,
No,
but
let's just say it calls back earlier in the film when he's cleaning out the graveyard.
yeah.
Because again, Cedric Entertainer's character criticizes him, Ethan Hawke, for always being in the garden. Meaning, like, you're always just in this place of reflection and regret and looking back, right? You're never, like, doing all these other things. But when Ethan Hawke is cleaning up the graveyard as part of the church, the cemetery, there's, like, a dead squirrel or rabbit and a snare of barbed wire, right?
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah. He was cleaning up leaves and trash amongst the graves.
Because I was wondering where they got this. He got the snare thing from.
And there was a dead squirrel, a rabbit.
I thought it was just had to do with the images of Jesus,
Well, that's
whatnot. Yeah.
But then he took the snare and took it back inside.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Oh, I remember him collecting the snare. I didn't. I just didn't realize. I didn't put it together that that's where that came from.
Definitely. So I think it ends in kind of a less realistic way, but I think an appropriate way for the film. It brings in the themes and the ideas of self-punishment, feeling like they're caught in a trap, and then being at the height of despair, but also getting your one symbol of hope. Like, you have to have hope. Without despair, you'll never get hope.
Right. So it came back to that whole soliloquy.
It sets you up from the very beginning. I felt this was like the era when like A24 films kind of followed this blueprint of a movie for 75% of the time that builds up to something and then it has some sort of intense ending. A24 has gotten away from that a bit.
Yeah.
But so this was back when, A24 was great.
A24 was great.
Yeah.
Make A24 great again?
Not A24 is good.
It does a lot. It does a lot. It's
So that was the Paul Schrader double feature. Unless you have other thoughts. I think they're just two really good movies.
Good actors, good actresses, or we call men and women actors now. Yeah. Yeah, they were good movies, both of them. I enjoyed them. I did feel like after First Reformed, at the end, I was like, that's it?
Yeah.
I was like, that's it? But now that we talk it through...
That sucked.
I didn't say that sucks. I said, that's it? Meaning I kind of wanted a little more. I didn't need the violence.
No.
But I kind of needed something more.
But if you think about it...
But now that I talk and think about it, that was the good ending.
I'll be honest. I've especially during like the Move Over Moonlight podcast days, First Reformed was always a film I wanted to see, but I was hesitant to see it because I thought it would just be boring. I thought it would just be Ethan Hawke sitting in a dark, empty room all day.
First of all, there's no Jenga.
I think they're playing in Jenga. This is why Jenga should not be
Jenga.
movies.
First of all, there's nothing boring about Ethan Hawke.
No, I know, but I thought it would be. Again, I'm glad I finally came around to it.
Ever.
Yeah.
Like, he's always good in every movie. But it was a little, his movies are very, like, dialogue based.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of action in them.
Which I dig.
Yeah, which is fine. But maybe that's why you thought it might be boring.
It would just be like, I don't know. But I'm glad we saw it. I definitely like Master Gardener more than First Reformed.
I did too.
Master Gardener, I'd be like, I kind of really want to watch that again. I liked a lot of the pacing and the vibe, style.
The budget was bigger.
But no,
the look of it was nice.
It did look nice. I did like First Reformed that it was in that like kind of 4x3 square.
Yeah, that's true.
Screen, but I felt that added to the claustrophobic nature of the whole thing.
It's true. just kind of this small town.
Kind of felt trapped like Ethan Hawke did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true.
So I did appreciate. I felt. I felt look-wise, artistic-wise, First Reform was better, but Master Gardener was just like kind of the more kind of engrossing movie.
Yeah. So we liked them both. It was a
You know, on
good
my Letterboxd,
double
I already
feature.
showed you on my Letterboxd.
I know.
Master Gardener's like number 3 of all
I
all new
know.
films I've seen this
It's
year.
crazy. I don't know if I would put it that high, but I liked it.
Did make the top 10. I think it's at number 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
It would. I wouldn't put it that high, but we have different motives for the movies we like, and like different criteria.
Yeah.
You and I, which is fine. But it was good. It was fun.
It was good. Good stuff.
I liked it a lot.
So I drank my Juice Lord and/or
Andor,
Haze.
I'm almost done.
Nope. Cheers, the double cheers.
This was really fun.
Until we see our next
Nachos and beer Sunday.
Yeah.
Goodbye. Bye.